Greetings to all Africans on the continent and across the world. This is King Echu, the radical Pan-African activist from Amazonia, aka Ambasby. Africans, you've seen what happened in Tunisia. You've seen what the president of Tunisia said about black Africans. The president of Tunisia couldn't say that to white Tunisians because there are about 100,000 whites from Europe in Tunisia. So the president of Tunisia couldn't say that to white Europeans. That will create a panic that they don't need. But they could do that to black Africans, to so-called sub-Saharan Africans, because they see Africans as less than, as less humans, as insignificant. But though the World Bank took action, doesn't mean that the World Bank has interests of African people. And African people should know that. Black Africans and black African people must create power through our regions, through our nations, to make a bold statement, a bolder statement in the world. Because, like it or not, Arabs and Tunisians, or Tunisian Arabs, don't give a shit about black Africans. Moroccans don't give a shit about Africans, or Morocco doesn't give a shit about Africans. Egypt doesn't give a shit about Africans. Arab Africans do not give a shit about black Africans. They see Africans as less human beings. But we must create the power to display to them that our humanity matters. So the World Bank suspended Tunisia over the racist attack on black Africans. African Union described the action of the president of Tunisia as hate speech. The African Union needs to be bold, must act boldly, must think to create power for the African Union. And there are a lot of stuff that are happening in the world, even in Africa and around the world, that African Union needs to take advantage to nourish and grow the power of African Union, so that the African Union can protect the interests of African Union and can protect the interests of African people, black African people. Because Tunisians don't give a damn about black Africans. They could say that. The next day, Morocco could say the same shit. Soon, Egypt, they treat black Africans in Middle Eastern nations, which are Arab nations, as less than human beings. The same thing that Tunisians are doing, the same thing that other African Arab nations are doing. But we need to create power. The African Union needs to create power. The 5 blocks of Africa needs to create power. And the nations of Africa needs to create power to utilize power across the countries and across the blocks and across the African Union. So the fact that the African Union spoke against the action that the president of Tunisia said was a form of creating power and using power for the interests of African people. So the African Union needs to do that and needs to do a lot more. But regional powers also need to do a lot more, and the nations within the blocks of Africa, within the continent of Africa, needs to do more for the interests of African people. Mali, Ivory Coast, Guinea, all took action and pulled out their people from the xenophobic nation known as Tunisia. And the government of Tunisia denied the statement that the president of Tunisia said about black Africans. Black African was not racist, which actually it was, but they're denying that it wasn't racist because it's what he said, and because of what he said, the actions were taken against black Africans. So his statement was racist, just despite the fact that the government of Tunisia is saying that the statement that the president made wasn't racist, but we're saying it's racist, which is why the killing of black Africans in Tunisia rose up. Tunisian foreign minister spoke to CNN, which is also another racist news channel, and he's made a statement that Islam spread from Tunisia. Like it or not, Islam is racist towards black Africans. The fact that some black African nations practice Islam does not mean that Islam isn't racist. Islam is racist. Islam is a colonial master, just like Christianity with Europeans. Europeans brought Christianity to Africa and colonized Africans. Arabs brought Islam in Africa and colonized Africans, and which is why Tunisia is now an Arab nation, because they invaded. It was never a black nation. Egypt was never a black nation. Egypt was never an Arab nation, but a black nation. Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, those were all black countries, but Arabs took it over through the Arab slave trade, killed and brought Islam and took over those areas. Now they say we are trying to change Tunisia into a black nation because, well, the black man's genetic is more powerful than any genetics in the world, which is why we are the most hated people across the globe. Because you have a child with any race, have a child with a black person, the child automatically becomes black. That is the power of black people, which is why we are hated in Tunisia, which is why we are hated in Europe, which is why we are hated across the globe. But that will not stop us from surviving and thriving. This is King Angel. Till next time.